to do over the next week or so is just go over a little bit of the yellow belt syllabus, give you my take on things, give you some ideas of the concepts where they were built around. And so today I was going to start with a block and set. Obviously, it's probably one of the first things that we ever teach in a Kenpo system when kids or adults come into the thing, because it's easy. We put people in a basic horse stance and we isolate the upper body, so just the hands. I do it slightly different than most people, and I'll explain why as we go along. So anyway, hang with me. Over the next week or so, we're going to do some yellow belt material. Maybe we'll progress onto other stuff, but if you want to put constructive feedback back in, that's fine. If you just want to be a keyboard warrior, don't bother wasting my time or your time, because I'm not going to be interested in getting back and forward with you in a conversation. Okay, this is my take on things. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's also great. Do your thing. We'll have some fun, okay? So the first thing I was going to start was with what we call a block and set. And it's called blocking set 1 because there is a blocking set 2. So it starts with a horse stance and hands are in a chambered position. Okay, so the first things you want to think about is when we work on the idea of this, we have our center line, which is the line that goes straight through the middle of our body, down through the nose, through the body, down through the groin to the floor. That's our center line. Okay, so if we were in a fighting stance, our center line would change from there. But of course, I'm in a training stance, my center line is right down the middle. Okay, the next thing you want to think about is our eggshell. If we take a perfect circle and we take it from the head to the groin, it would come about this wide on my shoulders. So obviously I don't want to be blocking something that's not going to be necessary. In other words, if I had a windshield on a car, I don't want to be wiping the fresh air, I just want to wipe the windshield. So I take that circle and I stretch it, that becomes oval. So this is what we call the eggshell. So it goes from the tip to the shoulders down to the groin. Okay, so this would be where I would reach the eggshell but not break the eggshell. Same with down all of this stuff, okay? Then the other thing is we want to think about three-dimensional. So 3 dimensions are height, width, and depth. So we have a high block, we have a low block, so that would be my height. We have an inside block and an outside block, that would be my width. And we have a back block and a forward block, that would be my depth. So direction would be up and down, in and out, left and right, and back and forward. Okay, so all of this stuff, the stuff that we start to talk about, comes in what Mr. Barker would call the motion chart, that we would talk about motion. Okay, so if I start this, I'm going to travel it with my inward block. My upward block would travel first, then I go up the middle. Remember, I'm talking about the center line. And when I get to my nose as a point of reference, I'm going to turn it that it reaches the outer rim, which is my shoulder, and above the top of my head. So this would not be a good block because it might block my head. Somebody hit me on the head, but it could also break my collarbone. So I'll make sure it goes across. Okay, so as I come up the middle, the point of reference, my nose, and turn and put an angle of deflection. That means the angle that comes down from this. If I do this, this is a right angle. This is no good, this will break, it's very weak. If I do this, then obviously it's much stronger. This could be to the extended outward, and the downward is the same structure, just moving further around the circle. So my first block would come up the middle, center line, and move to the upward block, which is the angle of deflection. Okay, the next move, I'm going to be reverse action. So these concepts about all of this stuff that Mr. Parker does, everything has an opposite and reverse. And the first thing we're learning is we build around that structure of opposites and reverses. So obviously the opposite of a right upward block would be a left upward block. Okay, when I talk about reverse motion, I come up the middle to my upward block and I take the reverse action. Comes back to my center line. So I'm already starting to block and then I move to the corner. So it comes up, angle of deflection, reverse the action by dropping my elbow to the center line and go to the corner. That would be my inward blocks to make sure I don't break my eggshell. Now where I change this on most people, they'll go to an extended outward block, which goes to the opposite side of this. Now with an extended outward block, typically we need to find 2 dimensions. One is width and one is depth. In other words, I come to the middle, so I've got the width that's built in and I take it away from me, so it's my depth, as my hinges would be a very good extended outward block. But there's no reverse action about that. So when I want to do the way I teach this If I come up the middle from my center line, come back to my center line, do my inward block, the reverse action of this is this. This is a vertical outward block. It's not an extended outward block. So if you see my line that I'm traveling from there, if I do it sideways, you'll just see it move back and forward. That's the reverse action. This is not a reverse action. Okay, so when I teach this in my school, the reason I put that in there is because one is the reverse action, which as we talk about in our concepts, everything has an opposite and reverse. But also when we're teaching our motion forms, i.e. short form 1, long form 1, short form 2, and long form 2, they are all structured around a vertical outward block. They're not structured around an extended outward block. This comes obviously, if you know Kenpo, at the end of short form 2, when we show an extended outward block as a different block. Okay, so don't write in and tell me it's got to be this way, because I was doing it with Mr. Polka for many years like this, and I've always done it this way, and he never said anything about it. So whether people change it or not, I'm comfortable in my own skin that that's my reverse action, that's my vertical block, instead of an extended outward block. Your choice. Makes no difference to my life at all. Okay, so I come up the middle, upward block, reverse the action, inward block. Reverse the action to a vertical outward block. Okay, I come back to my center line again. So I'm going to clear everything from this side of my body to the opposite side. If I take my block, this is the most mistakes that people do, they go from there to there. So nothing happened as far as blocking my body. So from the vertical, I reverse the action to the center line and take it across so I get my eggshell on the lower level. Okay, so that's my dimension of width. Now I'm going to do the dimension of depth. So now I'll be coming backwards with an elbow block. So if you look at it from there, it would be stepping backward and blocking somebody trying to get access to my kidney or roundhouse kick, punch, whatever. Okay, so from this to down and then back, so with the depth dimension. So, and everything has an opposite and reverse. Okay, so reverse of back is forward. So I come forward with my push down. So again, when I do the push down, this wouldn't be logical if I was in somebody, and because I'm in a training horse, if I put this wrist as it is from this position and somebody came up with a knee, I'm probably putting the weakest part of my body onto the strongest part of their body, which is driven by the big muscle. Okay, so in reality, I wouldn't be fighting somebody like this, I'd be fighting somebody like this when I add depth to my stance. So if I push down and I put the mass of my weapon, the mass of my body on top of my weapon, which is my push down, then I can get correct body alignment. Now it would work because it's structured to take it this way, not structured to take it this way. So that's just a little bit of the information that we retain with. So I come up the middle to the center line, my angular deflection, come to the corner with my inward block, reverse the action from my outward block, vertical, come back to the center and move to the outside with my downward block. Come back with my elbow block and then push down and back to my training horse. And I get the opposite side. Everything has an opposite and reverse. The opposite of my right side is my left side. In, vertical, down, elbow, and push. As some schools finish at that, we always do a double-sided. So we come up the middle, one, put our X block, come into the middle, to our inward blocks, reverse the action to my vertical outwards, and then downward, elbow blocks, push down, back to our training horse, meditation, and finish. Interesting point on this, a lot of people when they do the block and set 2, you'll see that they, even though they do block and set 1 like this, a lot of people I've seen around the world, when they do block and set 2, they always do a vertical outward block instead of doing this, which keeps them consistent with what they're doing on their block and set 1. So this is the way I do it, vertical, down, all of this. So that completes block and set. If you have any decent feedback, feed it in. If you have negative feedback, keep it yourself. I'll be a happy bunny. You can stay nice and cool and take